There is often confusion and misinformation around workplaces about confined spaces and controlling risk within a confined space. We will hopefully clarify these issues in this video series. Hi, it's Laurie from Total Management and Training, where we have been providing assistance to organisations for many years in health, safety, training and business management. We've been involved for many years in determination of confined spaces, preparation of confined space entry permit procedures and provision of confined space entry training. There is legislation relating to confined spaces, but we must all remember that the primary reason for confined space entry management is to ensure that we do not place our people at risk. The definition of a confined space can vary depending on jurisdictions, and the following one that I'm going to be talking about is actually based on the SafeWork Australia model, WHS regulations and the Confined Space Code of Practice. So a confined space can be defined as an enclosed or partially enclosed place. So, for example, a tank and an open top tank would be regarded as a potentially partially enclosed, or a vessel may be fully enclosed. It is not designed or intended primarily to be occupied by a person. So it's not something like a control room or something of that nature. It's designed to be intended to be at normal atmospheric pressure. If we're entering confined spaces where it is not at atmospheric pressure, that will be a totally separate set of circumstances. It is likely to contain an atmosphere with an unsafe oxygen level. It could contain contaminants such as airborne gases, vapour dusts, which could cause injury from a fire or explosion occurring. And it could contain harmful concentration of any airborne contaminants. And last but not least, it could include engulfment. So under legislation, for a confined space to be defined as a confined space, it must be enclosed or partially enclosed. It must not be designed or intended primarily to be occupied by a person. It must be designed to be at normal atmospheric pressure, and it must include one of the following: an atmosphere with unsafe oxygen level, a contaminant, harmful concentrations of an airborne contaminant, or engulfment. Any one of those will make it a confined space. Once we've defined it as a confined space, there'll be other hazards that we would need to look at. For example, is there any electrical power entering that confined space? Is there mechanical energy in the confined space? Are there manual handling injuries? These on their own would not make it a confined space, but we still need to manage the risks associated with it, and often these are regarded and categorised as a restricted area. In some organisations, they include restricted areas in their confined space entry procedures, and so it is necessary to check within your workplace to establish what the local requirements are. The determination of a confined space should be through a formal application of the risk management process. You need to actually go through and systematically establish what the criteria is for that confined space. Now, some examples of a confined space will be things like a tank, a pick, a pipe, a duct, chimneys, silos, pressure vessels, underground sewers, stormwater drains, shafts, trenches, tunnels. The legislation then goes on to specifically define what is not a confined space. For example, a mine shaft, or a place which is designed for a person to occupy, such as a cool room. You need to refer to your regulator for specific information on confined spaces, and you will generally find that within the codes of practice in most jurisdictions there is a flow chart for you to follow to assist in identification of the confined space. If you want to see how to determine a confined space and obtain a useful tool, please go to our video, How to Determine Whether a Space is a Confined Space, at our YouTube video channel. Thank you for watching.